do a lot of play activities with kids so that they feel a little bit more comfortable while they're in the hospital. Some of the play activities we do involve sort of learning about the body as well and how the body works and how their body themselves got hurt or is sick, which landed them in the hospital. So um, today's demonstration is just going to be me sort of demonstrating an activity that I often do with kiddos while they're in the hospital, and it's called a blood soup recipe. So it just kind of demonstrates each of the blood cell types that we have flowing around our body. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll be here to answer any questions that you may have following the demonstration.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura. I'm a child life specialist at the Children's Hospital of Colorado. A child life specialist, it works with kids in the hospital, kind of like a teacher, to help kids and families understand what they're going to experience while they're in the hospital, and also helps to prepare them for how to cope with being in the hospital setting. So, for instance, if a kid walks into the ER and they had a scrape and an open cut on their forehead, I would be there to kind of help them understand what it is doctors and nurses need to do to help their cut get better. A lot of what I do also involves educating kids just about the body and how the body works. Today, we're going to talk about the blood and how the blood works throughout our bodies and what our blood is made of. I help kids to understand what the blood is made of when they have illnesses of the blood sometimes. I also do fun activities with the kids to kind of help them better process and just have fun while they're in the hospital as well. Today, we're going to do one of those activities. But first, I want to know if you all know where blood is made. Did you guess? You might be thinking, man, how are bones and blood related? And blood is made in the bones? It actually is. Blood cells are produced right here in the central bone called the bone marrow, really inside the bone. Not outside, but inside the bone, called the bone marrow. There are 3 types of blood cells that we're going to talk about today. The red blood cells, white blood cells, and our platelets. Everybody has all 3 blood cells. I'm going to go into a little more detail about what each blood cell does for our body. I teach kids that our red blood cells are kind of like our energy cells. They help us run, jump, skip, and play. So when you're feeling kind of sick and down and just not full of energy, your red blood cell count just may be a little lower than normal. Our white blood cells are our fighter cells. They're kind of like soldier cells going into battle. Because when we don't feel very good and when we're just kind of just not feeling good and feeling sick, our white blood cells are there to fight the illness so that we can get better quicker. And finally, our platelets. Our platelets are our Band-Aid cells. Band-Aid cells, you might think. Yeah, when we get cut and we have an open cut and then we have a scab that forms over it, you know, that hard, crusty skin that goes over that, those are the platelets working in action to create that scab so that we don't keep bleeding. Today's activity, I hope you'll find fun. We're going to actually make blood, not real blood, just blood that we can play with, where each thing we put in our recipe or each item we put in our recipe is going to represent a specific blood cell that we have. I have here 1/2 cup of corn syrup, and the corn syrup is going to represent the plasma. Plasma in our blood helps our blood to flow a little bit more freely through our body. And plasma holds all of the important blood cells together. Next, we're going to put in our red blood cells. What's better than having red candy to represent our red blood cells? I'm using cinnamon candy, But really, you can use any candy that might be shaped in a disc-like shape. Maybe like Lifesavers. Red Lifesavers would be also a good substitute if you don't have cinnamon candy. These are representative of our red blood cells. And again, if you remember, our red blood cells are giving us energy. In the pot you go. Next, we're going to include our white blood cells. For my white blood cells, I'm using northern beans, or those white beans. Really all you need is about 10 to 12 of these that go inside the pot. If you have a few more, that's okay. The final cell that I'm going to represent are our platelets. And I'm using lentil beans to represent our platelets. Platelets, remember, are our Band-Aid cells to make our cuts feel better quicker. In you go. Few platelets. So you may notice that this mixture is a little bit thick. What I also like to do is thin it out a little bit. I'm just adding a few tablespoons of water to thin out the mixture. Because typically blood is not super thick in our body. It's able to flow freely through our body. To give you a better visual, I'm going to transfer my blood into a plastic bag. This will help you be able to see everything a little more clearly. And hopefully, here. I'm letting all the air out so that I can really get a good feel of all the components in here. Feels kind of cool, if you ask me. I like how it feels. It's a fun activity if kids just like something to hold or squeeze. And that's it. That was our quick blood soup recipe. I hope you enjoyed hanging with me today. And remember, if ever you get ill or sick and have to go to the hospital, be sure to ask your doctor if they have child life there. Because if you're feeling really nervous or anxious about anything, we can be there to help you understand what it is you're going to go through and help you through that process so you feel successful. Thanks so much.
That was great.
Thanks. That was my presentation. I'm here if anybody has any questions about anything that they saw, or were you working on the recipe yourself, Jennifer? I'm looking at Jennifer now and I'm wondering if she was able to do it. Oh, fun. Very cool. That's awesome. So you know what? The good thing about this recipe is it's just fun to sort of handle in your hands and play with. Sometimes we use stress balls, but this can also act sort of like if for any adults in the conversation, if kids have sensory disorders or issues where they sort of need something tangible to hold in their hands, just to kind of add that added comfort, certainly this can provide that for them. But it's just a fun activity for kids to do, to recognize and be able to see what, again, exists in our blood and what our blood is made of. That's a good job, Jennifer. Good job.
Great. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Take care.
You can say.
That's great.